Dr. Aurelia Vance never forgot the sound the heart made the night she brought it back. No electrocardiogram could track its cadence. No metric of medicine could tame the fevered flutter. The monitor painted a jungle of peaks and valleys that refused to resolve into any familiar rhythm. Far too fast for tachycardia, too syncopated for fibrillation, yet never quite chaotic. It seemed to pause mid-surge, gather itself, and pounce forward again, like a drummer testing the edge of silence before cracking the next beat. Inside the echoing hush of Operating Theater 3, that pulse was louder than the suction, louder than the ventilator, louder than the muttered prayers of the scrub nurse. It was, Aurelia thought with a thrill she was ashamed to admit, music played by a single, soaped metronome of flesh. The transplant had been a miracle of logistics. The donor was an unidentified vagrant found collapsed behind the old opera house, a perfectly healthy young man with no documents and a note pinned inside his coat, for the auditorium that sleeps in men's chests. The cardiac tissue was pristine, a rare oneg with matching antigens for Alias Crane. Aurelia's patient 42. End-stage cardiomyopathy, living on borrowed ventilations. The ethics committee had raised eyebrows. The police shrugged. Time was the final arbiter. Elias would not last another week. So the unknown heart found its new home, and an unknown rhythm claimed its first steward. In the first post-operative dawn, as gray light seeped into recovery, Elias opened his eyes. He did not ask where he was, or if he had survived. Instead, a thin, high whistle slid between his lips, curled upward, and resolved into a fragile minor third. The note hovered in the room like a question too shy to form words. Then another, a perfect fifth, warmer, beckoning. His wife, Amelia, tried to answer. "Darling, you made it." But the syllables snagged in her throat. The same whistle emerged from her mouth, lower, resonant, shaping itself into a trembling harmony with what her husband had just sung. The nurse at the bedside shouted for help, but she, Janelle Mercer, 20 years of night shifts, unshakable, found that her cry came out as a brisk staccato of clicking tongue and hummed arpeggio. Alarm gave way to confusion. Soon an orderly, 2 residents, and Aurelia herself had gathered around Elias. They spoke over one another, yet none could produce a word. Language had slipped its leash. Only melody remained, threading them together in an impromptu quartet of worry. Aurelia gestured for calm, scrawling slow, deliberate letters onto the patient's chart. Stay quiet. Focus on breath. The music subsided into soft motifs. She noted vitals remarkably stable. Then she turned off every machine that could record sound, fearing contamination of evidence she did not yet understand. Speech returned in the hallway, as if the threshold of the room acted like a dam. Outside, the staff exchanged frantic theories: aphasia, mass hysteria, carbon dioxide leak. But inside the curtain of bed 12, human throats betrayed their owners and served an invisible composer. That same afternoon, 2 floors up, an elderly woman recovering from mitral valve repair strangled her roommate with intravenous tubing. Security footage later showed both women singing a chilling, gentle lullaby, pitched exactly to the pumping of their monitored hearts, until oxygen drained from the victim, and her song fell silent. The murderer's face remained expressionless, almost serene, as if finishing a lullaby's final cadence. Over the next 10 days, the phenomenon spread like a murmured refrain. Any patient whose heart had stopped and been brought back by Aurelia's hands, whether through defibrillation, bypass, or transplantation, awoke with song instead of language. The melodies were tailored to each larynx, yet shared a hidden architecture that made them inherently collaborative. 2 patients wheeled past each other in gurneys might exchange a bar or 2, solving an invisible leitmotif before the doors hissed shut. 3 days into the outbreak, the hospital tallied its 4th death. A phlebotomist found in the stairwell, throat opened by a broken lancet. while the nearest revived patient stood above the body humming a descending chromatic line, blood-speckled gloves tucked into her gown like a soloist finishing applause. Aurelia did not sleep. She reviewed surgical footage, audio logs, echocardiograms. Patterns surfaced. Every murder occurred in a place of natural reverberation: stairwell, tiled, bathroom, atrium. Locations where chords could bloom, where notes collided into overtones strong enough to feel through skin. Victims were selected for their timbre: baritone security guard, contralto, resident, soprano, volunteer. The killings were not random. They were orchestrated. She borrowed a phonocardiograph, a stethoscope wired to a microphone, and recorded Elias's transplanted heart, slowed 500%. The beats mapped onto a percussive sequence of 3s and 5s, accented silences, refusing the tyranny of 4s that underpinned ordinary life. Printed as dots on sheet paper, the rhythm looked like glyphs for a ritual she half recognized. The dies irae, perhaps, but folded in unfamiliar geometry. Within that geometry hid instructions. The murders corresponded to percussive strikes: a bass drum, a cymbal choke, a snare rim-shot each victim, another click of the score. The piece was writing itself in blood. Aurelia sealed Theater 3, turned it into a shrine of investigation. She calibrated subwoofers to replicate the infrasonic range of a beating heart, fed them the pattern she had transcribed, and watched surgical sponges dance on stainless steel tables as if drawn by static. The room hummed with pressure. In the corner stood a jar containing the idle pacemaker she had removed from Elias's chest, now unnecessary. The metallic device jerked like a trapped beetle against glass. She finally named the thing inside her patient: a composer. Not metaphorically, literally, a being whose medium was cardiac rhythm, whose ink was hemoglobin, whose orchestra was whoever shared its circulation. It had found a vessel in Elias Crane, and now sought to conduct the world one diaphragm, one larynx, one murder at a time, until its symphony completed whatever yearning compelled it. That realization spawned an equally unsettling question: how much of Aurelia's own body had bent to its tempo the moment she sutured vessel to vessel? She heard phantom taps at her pulse, syncopations between blinks. At night, she dreamed of scalpel handles transformed into tuning forks, slicing open chests to free the bells inside ribs. On the 12th day, the police quarantined the ICU. Television crews parked in drizzle outside the ambulance bay. The CDC dispatched a neurologist who spoke without consonants for the first 30 seconds of his press briefing, then blinked, cleared his throat, and started over, in terrified English. Governors argued about federal intervention. Aurelia ignored them all. She had resolved to end the music. Her plan was chemical and brutal. Hyperkalemic cardioplegia. Flood the heart with potassium until every sodium channel locked, every myocyte fell limp. It was reversible if timed correctly, lethal if not. She would anesthetize Elias, cannulate, arrest the heart, excise it, and place it in a Faraday cage lined with lead and acoustic baffling. Let the composer beat against nothingness until its score ended in desperate diminuendo. At 2:14 a.d.m., under emergency authorization, Theater 3's lights blossomed. Inside Aurelia, 2 nurses, an anesthetist, each cleared of song by wearing bone conduction jammers, compared instruments. Elias lay pale but awake, eyes glassy with resignation. Ever since his transplant, he had not spoken a semitone that indicated pain or fear. His melodies hinted at rapture, at belonging. To lose the heart would be to lose the only language he had ever truly felt, his own. The ventilator hissed. Propofol dripped. Elias slipped beneath white eyelids, crooning a lullaby no microphone captured. Aurelia had disabled them all. Scalpel bit skin, sternum parted under saw. The heart emerged in haloed lamplight, glistening, muscular, obstinate. Its beats drove subwoofers to resonate through the floor despite being disconnected. The very walls sang. Aurelia introduced the cardioplegic solution. The syringe's plunger moved like finality. First beat still strong. Second staggered. Third stutter. Then silence that felt louder than the rhythm itself. The monitor flatlined. Around the table the staff exhaled as if a blizzard door had shut, but silence did not hold. Out in the hallway a low drone arose, joined by another and another. A human pipe organ swelling on the far side of the ore door. Aurelia felt it vibrate against her heart, against the arrested heart in her hands. She imagined electrodes sparking to life even without current, the tissue writhing like a headless snake remembering thunder. She ordered sutures. They would close the chest without reinsertion, keep Elias on mechanical circulatory support. Yet the moment she lifted the heart toward the cage, a note stabbed her eardrums. A bright, impossible pitch that bent air into glass. The lead nurse's jammer headset sputtered and died. The nurse opened her mouth, not words, but a clarion trumpet call. The anesthetist answered with a tremolo trill. Outside, the choir of revived patients marched closer, boots thudding in tempo. Metal groaned. The doors burst inward. In wheeled gurneys and wheelchairs, on crutches and IV poles, came every survivor of Aurelia's miracles. Mouths bloomed into vowels of bronze and obsidian, multi-dimensional consonants cascading up the scale. They did not look angry. They looked complete, radiant, with the sort of fervor only music or religion can grant. Their song battered the spinal cord's hidden drums. Aurelia's knees buckled. Still, she clutched the heart. She felt it begin to twitch. Not beating, but flexing like a conductor's hand begging to rise. Her own heart answered with premature contractions, trying to match the tempo it remembered in utero, the first rhythm any mammal hears. She could end it if she crushed the organ right then, pulped it between palms. The composer might die. But Elias's face, half hidden beneath sterile drapes, rejected that fate. Fuck. Fuck. Perhaps the composer would not die but leap into her, or into the chorus multiplying. The only guarantee was completion of the symphony, and the next section required her, she alone knew counterpoint, of pericardial suture to ventricular flutter. Aurelia felt the scalpel in her pocket. In a future measured by ordinary morality, she might have slit her own throat to break the chain. Instead, she placed the heart back into Elias's empty cavity with the tenderness of returning a jewel to its setting. She removed the clamps. Electrolyte wash roared in. The heart shuddered, then kicked. The auditorium of the corridor swelled with ovation. Every larynx found its pitch. Aurelia recognized the chord, not major, not minor, but a stacked dissonance, resolved by the next measure only if a surgeon's voice filled the gap. She lowered her mask, lips trembling. A single syllable left her, pure and clear, sliding into the communal key. The composer's answer flashed through all bodies present, a shimmering wreath scale of polyrhythm that parted her fear like reeds. She sang again and again, discovering intervals that stitch incision to eternity. The front row patients advanced, not menacing, but expectant, their hands raised like pages waiting for the maestro's downbeat. In that moment she comprehended the score in full. It was titled not Missa or Requiem, but Genesis. The murders had been sacrifices, sharpened rests, struck drums, inhaled pauses. Every death made space in the chord for new resonance that ordinary speech could never birth. The symphony would crescendo only once enough silence had been carved from the living. Then, in the hush after the final ringing fermata, something unnamed would stir, rethreading tendon to spirit in a kingdom of vibration. Tonight's movement called for 9 more beats of flesh. She could see them etched like runes on the recovery ward flowchart. She saw which throats her scalpel must open and how the blood should spatter against acoustic tile to paint the grace notes. Aurelia lifted her arms as any conductor would, left hand poised to sculpt volume, right hand drawing breath from the orchestra. She gave the downbeat. They obeyed. The hospital transformed into a cathedral of collision. Oxygen tanks slammed concrete with timpani thunder. Bones cracked in syncopated clusters. Windows shattered, releasing arias into rain-soaked night. Police failed to coordinate. Their radios squawked only feedback that modulated to the hidden meter. Cameras recorded but streamed no images, only kaleidoscopes of sound waves. Hours later, when federal response teams breached the building, they found corridors emptied, bodies arrayed in spiral patterns that echoed cochlear architecture, blood pooling like red lacquer between tiles. In the center of Theater 3 lay Elias, chest closed, breathing steadily, pulse slow but unwavering. Beside him stood Dr. Aurelia Vance, gaze distant, fingertips stained to the elbow, swaying to a beat only she could hear. She spoke, and the first word from her lips was not a word, but a chord that captured every ear, a sonorous envelope that folded hearts to its measure. Soldiers felt rifles grow lighter, horizons widen into possible keys. They lowered their weapons, unknowing, waiting for the conductor's next cue. Aurelia raised one hand, palm up, as if inviting the whole wounded world onto the podium. The heart inside Elias answered, steady, curious, patient. The unknown rhythm welcomed its expanding audience, ready to begin the next movement.